So I have right here a cool study because I'm going to be working with you guys from the hand. And the anatomy of the hand is something that's extremely difficult. It challenges a lot of artists, and I'll give a story about myself as I worked with the hands. I would work on, like, let's say in a painting, I'd work on the face, the face, the face. Then I kind of would like hurry through the hand and not give it much attention. But a lot of the personality, a lot of the identity of a work of art is actually found in the hands. And so I learned to slow down, and simply put, I just learned to study it. So as we work today, I have a few different things. I have these regular hands right here, which come from an anatomical company. But I also have these hands, which are quite interesting because you can see how the parts are somewhat, they're connected by fishing line. And so what these are hands that are what we call de-articulated. And what that means is that the hands, we're able to separate the joints so we can understand each part a little bit better. All right, so what I'm going to do, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to think of, let's say, the arm coming off, and I'm going to really abbreviate that. The way that the arm and the wrist meet the hand, that's something for its own lesson for sure. And I wouldn't ever, want to skip that as being something important. But I also, at the same time, I know that we could have a whole lesson just about how the wrist meets the hand. So for our purposes today, we're just going to go pretty simple and just say that the arm is kind of like a cube that is advancing towards us, it's advancing in this direction right here. So that is the upper arm. Now, to get that hand at the correct position, I love doing this. I love taking a hand like this, and let me grab the correct hand right here. And it's going to be like that. So you can see that there's, things turned up. That's where I love working with these de-articulated hands, as they're called, where you can actually bend them and get them to fit the position. So like, let's say the fingers are curled up. What I do is I slide this up here, and then I bend the fingers right there. So you see how that middle finger, the ring finger, is bent up? Well, I can bend all of that just by feeding a little bit more line in, and then I can look at how my hand might look by actually just using the skeletal structure right here. So that's going through my mind as I work, but for our purposes right now, let's start with the back of the hand, and let's just think of the back of the hand as, the palm of the hand as being nothing more than just a cube. And to do this, we're gonna have to think of the cube of the hand as almost being, everything is going to be somewhat see-through. So wrist right here, hand right here, this is somewhat see-through. Everything for a long time is going to be pretty see-through. Then we're going to go on to the thumb right here. So when I work on a drawing, I treat the hand as being basically a cube with a triangle-ish kind of thing attached to the side. But I don't draw the entire hand and the thumb. I don't draw the hand and all the fingers. I treat it first as a cube, and then a triangle that can move coming off to the side. But you see how it's kind of like an independent agent right there. So as I work on that hand, on that thumb, I see it as starting to branch out right here. And so pretty much like there's something triangular right there. And we can pick up our really cool skeletal hands, and we can study all of these things. And so here I am. We're thinking of the entire palm of the hand for the moment as just being one cube. And then this is like a triangle coming off to the side. So you see how this comes out this way? So the next turn that we have is at the joint between, we're just going to call it digits. So we're going to call this the first, second, and third digits. So this is the first digit. So then there's a break, and then we have this second digit right here. So when something is overwhelming, what I always encourage people to do is, if you're overwhelmed by something in drawing, break it down into small parts. And I don't know if you guys have ever heard the phrase, how do you eat an elephant? Have you guys ever heard this phrase before? You eat an elephant one bite at a time. And it's a way of, when you're overwhelmed, not really getting like flooded, overwhelmed with something, but saying, okay, I could break this down into one simple step and then have another simple step. And that's the way that I build up hands. I see the whole thing, but then I start attacking it like little by little. So, okay, so we have the first digit right here mapped out. We have the second digit right here mapped out. Now let's get this third digit right here. Now the third digit that we're going to work on is, if you look at the image of the hand, it's a thumb turned to the side. And so I have the hand right, let's say this is a cube for the second digit. Then you can see, check out that thumb turned to the side right there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to see that as being a cube that pretty much tilts towards us. And there's going to be more on this in a little bit, so let's not get too focused on it, but I'm just going to treat it like that for the time being. And then we're going to change a lot of that up in a little while. Okay, so the image right here, the plane right here of the cube will then go to a whole second row. So the second row is, the second row of the concept that I have is the first digits of all the fingers. So in a way, this is a cube. All of this information is broken up into a cube. The first digit is in here, and I think I said that incorrectly before. This is the second digit. Now, the second digits are all together. Look at this. They could all be thought of as being one thing. So we're going to just put in those second digits, and we're going to keep in mind that like they're all kind of like operating. Watch me move my fingers in and out. It's almost as if there's a bar going through. You could say, well, they operate at different heights. Yes, they do, but it's useful to think of there being a first row and then a second row, and then we don't really have ability to turn the third row. So here is the second row right here, and I'm just going to vaguely just mask that in. Now, let's start thinking of that whole idea of geometric essence. Let's start thinking, okay, the middle finger is almost like a cube that's like tilted up a little bit. So we're going to draw it like that. Everything is just cubes right now. That's all that we're thinking of. And then the next finger right beside it, again, we're thinking of all the fingers' digits. This is the second row of digits as being nothing more than simple cubes. And you'll find in my drawing, I might be erasing some of these ideas in case they're not, they're not doing the job. But for right now, I think we're on track. And then here's the second digit for that pinky right over there. And I'll zoom in so you can see that a little bit better. So you can see how I took this whole area of the pinky and just turned it into a box. Now let's go over to the index finger. And the index finger is nothing more than another box. It's another cube. Okay, so it doesn't look like much, and you could be saying like, hey, I wanted to do a cool drawing of hands, and this just looks like a robot. I can promise you that this is how, in my work, I conceptualize a difficult hand, and it's worked extremely well for me. I've had paintings before, like I have a painting right now going off to one of the top courts in America, and in the painting they asked me to draw hands, and they said, we really love how you draw and paint hands. And so I drew and painted this judge's hands, and they walked in and they were like, we love that. So I had another piece that I put in a museum, and it went all the way to the first round of jurying in London at the National Gallery. And one of the things that a lot of people have told me is that with that painting that I did, that they really loved the painting of the guy's hand. So I do really enjoy drawing hands. I really enjoy painting hands, but there is a lot of exploration for me. All right, so now I'm on to the third digit. So we did this whole group right here. We're calling this the first digits. We did this whole group right here. Let me spin it around. And this is all the second digits. Now we're on to the third digits right here. And this digit of the hand is a box that curls up, like so. And then this digit is a box that points up in somewhat of a similar way. The pinky has another digit that points up like that. And then we have we finished all the first digits, second digits. We finished the third digits right there. Now let's go on to the fourth digit. So we could start at the index finger right here. And here is the fourth digit. And it points forward like that. So I think my index finger is looking a little bit too big. This happens all the time when I draw. I should have thought to make it a little bit shorter. So take a look again, go back to your skeletal reference that I'm holding up for you. And we have the first digit, the second digit, and look at how it gets progressively smaller. So this is the largest. This looks like 2/3 of that. This looks like 2/3 of that. And this looks like maybe half of that. So now look at your own hand and check out, you can actually study proportions just by looking at yourself. And you can feel your first digit of your hand right here. You can actually feel it if you feel the back of your hand. And that is massive. And then this one is a whole lot smaller. So the first digit of your hand goes all the way down to here. The second digit's right here. Now you can say, oh, well, if the second digit's that big, the third digit's quite a bit smaller, but then the fourth is smaller yet. So these things, if you're ever stuck, you can just look at your own hands and things of that sort, and you can study literally your mother's hands and say, hey, Mom, can you come and can I just examine the proportions of your hands? Can you can have your dad sit down and he has a book and say, Dad, can I do a geometric essence drawing of your hands? And these are great ways of studying. So, all right, so now we have the final digit. So first digit, second digit, third digit, fourth digit. We're going to go back to our skeleton. First digit, second digit, third digit. Now we need that fourth digit. And let's take a look at how we're tilting it. That's what we're doing. You see how it parallels the photo right there? So now let's get that fourth digit in there. And it overlaps the thumb. There is the fourth digit. And now we have another digit over here. There's the fourth digit for the ring finger. And now we have the fourth digit for the pinky. It's kind of tucked behind and blocked by the ring finger a little bit. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit, and now we're going to start kind of stitching things together. And as we stitch things together, what I'll encourage you to do is think of this as being the understudy. And then what we're going to do is we're going to roll this over to a more finished version that won't be in this video necessarily. Today we're just going to do the geometric essence, and we're going to develop it somewhat further, but then we're going to do a longer study that will be posted long form right here beyond today's lesson. Okay, so now that we have all this mapped out, let's start making sense of the big, broad geometric masses. And what I'm going to do, it feels like it kills you to do this, but you could take your eraser and pounce your drawing and kind of like bring your drawing backwards a little bit so that you can draw on top of your initial drawing. We've constructed the entire outline of everything, and now that gives us like a little bit more of an ability to draw on top of this guy. All right, so the thumb right here, we're going to start really refining. We know that there's a second digit right here. We're going to start refining the thumb by thinking of the geometric essence shapes that we came up with before, and by developing them even further. So do you see this one digit right here? So I could go into the scientific terminology, and I don't need to. There's phalanges and all things of that sort. We could name all the lunate, capitate, hamate, all the bones in here. I don't think that's necessary for what we're doing at the moment today. What I would prefer to do is to summarize the bones in terms of the first digits, the second digits, and the third. So let's draw right here a crude approximation for the first digits of all of the both the four fingers right here and the thumb. Let's draw the first digit and summarize it as being nothing more than that shape right there. And I'll even put a little pin in it. So there is more or less that first digit. Then let's come up with the second digit. The second digit, as you can see, it sits on top of the first one, and it's so cool, it glides. There's a pre-grooved channel right here, and then the head of this sits inside and it glides like that. I mean, it's absolutely amazing. So let's draw the second digit as being this right here. And let's turn that down right here. And there we have our second digit. Now let's go to the third digit right here. And let's draw that out. That's kind of in profile. That kind of feels like this right here. So not everything, some things in drawing are immediate rewards. Some things in drawing take, it's more of a long-term thing. And the long-term thing, a long-term study, if we submit to the rigors of a long-term study, then we get great reward from it. So I know that this is a challenging lesson, but once we start to get these concepts in, you're going to see it apply to your own work. All right, now let's do all of these right here. We just did them from the side. Now let's draw them as if it's from the top. Okay, so we're going to go right here. I'm just going to put in basically this shape like so. And here's the thumb. We could spend the whole lesson just on drawing individual fingers, but I prefer to give a broad lesson and then after that go into the particulars. So that is the first digit. Here is the second digit right here. The second digit has more of a flair to it. Like that. Maybe I went a little bit too narrow. And then here's the third digit. And it almost looks like a spade right here. Okay, so we have the upper look at something, the lower look at it, and now we're going to apply it right here. So let's put in that first digit right here on the hand, okay? So we're going to draw that in by tilting this first digit and drawing it tilted on its side. And if we want to check ourselves, we can look at our skeleton. We can say, oh, okay, it's going to go like this, and then it's going to curve in. And there is that first digit right there on its side. And if you want, you could put a little circle right there. It just makes it feel more like a pin. Now let's move on to the second digit right here. And we're drawing this one right here. It's a little bit shorter. And then we're going to turn it in kind of like 3/4. And it just comes like that. See how there's like a little barrel at the end right here? There we go. And I'm just gonna, as you go along, you can grab an eraser and start like cleaning up a little bit. Then we're gonna have the third finger, sorry, digit, 1, 2, 3, right here. So something I forgot to say earlier on is that it's interesting that our thumb only has 3 digits to it. So take a look at your hand and see how it goes 1, 2, 3. All the other fingers have 1, 2, 3, 4. So feel it out on your hand. This we treat as being separate and independent. The thumb strikes out right here. And then we have 1, 2, 3. And that's what we call the opposable thumb. And the opposable thumb is what enables us to grasp everything. Imagine for a moment your thumb was as long as your other fingers. If you tried to grab something, your hand would kind of be like too long. You would try to grab something and your fingers would it would come out too far like that. So there's a beautiful verse in the Bible and it says, "We are fearfully and wonderfully made." And when I look at the human anatomy, I think it all the time. I'm like, wow, we really are fearfully and wonderfully made. It's so incredible the design that went into every moment of us. Okay, so now we're going to regard all of these little bones as being almost like a half moon. And if your drawing's looking today as you work on this and you're like, oh boy, Mr. McAvoy, my drawing's looking like rubbish today. Don't worry about it. You don't always need to come out of any class with a pretty drawing. There's actually something worthwhile about having exploratory drawings and just letting them you can even let them be like somewhat awful. But you're pushing yourself further and you're refining your mind. So all of these I regarded as being almost like a half moon, like a half circle right here. And so then we have the next digit coming off for the index finger right here. And my apologies, as I teach and as I also am drawing at the same time, sometimes I use the wrong words and stuff like that. Sometimes I say the wrong number for the wrong digit and things of that sort. All right, so remember how we established that this is the first, second, third? Now we're going to expand it a little bit. And we have the first, second, third right here. We were talking about the thumb. We're now going to add on this other digit that the thumb does not have right here. And so we can summarize that as just being yet another round. We'll look at it in profile. Yet another round-ended, barrel-ended digit. And then it comes off and it kind of has this protuberance at the end right here. So that's kind of like this inside of your hand. That's like the back of your index finger right here. And this pointing this way is exactly like my hand pointing that way. All the bones leading the one to the other, just like that. So we'll call this 1, because now we're talking about all of your fingers together. 2, 3, 4. Now let's do this from overhead. Let's look at our skeleton from overhead. And there is the shape of it right here. So we're going to look for a way to summarize it. And so for me, I'm going to choose to see this as having like kind of a barrel head. And then it comes sort of like that. That's just a basic summary. Let's jump back over here. And now let's get that first digit for the index finger. And it's just going to kind of be buried in there. I'm not going to do too much with it, but I'm just going to let it sit there kind of like that. And then we're going to move on to the second digit. The second digit is blocked. right here. So let's let that go. We don't really need to do like anything that's like overkill. So we're just going to let that be. And go ahead and look at the image and notice how that second digit is blocked. The third digit is also blocked by, like, let's say there's the handle of the basket. So we can kind of like let that be blocked as well. Now we're up to the fourth digit. And I think I made my index finger, as I was saying earlier, I think I made it a little bit too long. So I make mistakes all the time in drawing, and I don't care. If that's the case, then I just correct it. So we're now taking the fourth digit right here, and we're going to draw the end of the fourth digit. And the end of the fourth digit, somebody just wrote and said it looks like a rook from chess. This to me looks like a spade, and upside down, that's what it looks like. So we can just summarize it and say, okay, it's gonna like kind of look like this. That is the final digit of the index finger. All right, let's jump over to the middle finger. All right, so we're on the middle finger. The hand is like this. The finger is tilted up, and we have that spade tilted up. I'm not going to go all the way down here because a lot of this is obstructed from our view. Let's start at the top, and let's nail this final digit right here. Let's nail that over here in the drawing. So I'm going to go boom, like so. And there is my final digit of the middle finger. Okay, now we're on to what we call the third digit of the middle finger. And again, thinking of these ways of summarizing the hand, we're just going to put in this shape as if it's tilted up towards us. And as I do this, like maybe I get my proportions wrong, like maybe the middle finger feels a little bit too fat right here. That's a possibility. I'll correct that stuff as I go along. Like if this feels too big, again, at the moment it kind of does feel a little bit too big, but it's not the end of the world. At least I got it more or less in a decent position, but I'm forever doubling back to change the sizes of something. If I'm doing really well, then I don't need to double back. If I'm doing really well, then I land everything the first time, but it just doesn't happen all the time for me. Okay, now we're up to the final digit, the fourth digit of the ring finger. And we're gonna take that whole idea of, somebody said the rook, I view it as being a spade, and it tilts in this direction. And so it kind of like tilts away from us, like that. And then we have the third digit right here. And in the photo of the hand, you can see it comes down a little bit further. So I'm going to make mine come down just a little bit further right here. All right, so now we are up to the pinky. And the pinky right here is going to, again, be like a spade. And if you want, we can pull the pinky up so we could study it. So here's my pinky. It's all tilted in like this. And there it is. It's like a spade leading to like the next chamber. So we're going to do 4. And that is obviously the smallest, leading to 3. And we can look at it right here. Okay, there's another digit down here that we put in. And if it's difficult, what you can do is you can imagine it turning away from you, or if you're fortunate to have like a skeletal reference, you can hold it up and you can look at it. There's many ways of doing this. But what's pretty cool is this whole entire thing is starting to gain real dimension. So now I'm going to move on to the first digit right here of the pinky. So we did the fourth, the third, the second. Now let's go to the first right here. Okay, so there's the first. I'm not going to do too much information for these digits right here. You can kind of allude to them being down there, but because they're being blocked, I don't want to like overwhelm the drawing. If I overwhelm the drawing with too much information all through here, it won't really serve the purposes that I'm looking for it to serve, where I want this drawing to be a really rough understanding of the geometric essence anatomy behind the hand so that we can develop it further into a highly rendered hand. So that being said, what I would like to do is I'm now going to hit this hand with a little bit of light. So we know that if light is turned on in the upper corner here, so let's draw our light bulb, and the light is shining down from there. Then what we're going to do as the light comes down and strikes here, we can immediately say, okay, any shape that is like a cube, let's say, we know immediately how to light that. Light's coming from here, and we just know like straight off the bat, okay, this side is going to be in shadow right over here. We know that this over here is going to be in shadow. So we can construct a cube. We've learned how to do that in previous lessons. And we can get a pretty convincing cube that way. Well, we can apply that same concept to everything going on here. If light's coming from this direction, then the light will not be able to hit the inside of this cube-like shape right here. And also, light won't be able to hit the inside of this shape right here. So you can see how you can kind of like map your way around the whole drawing by thinking of the angle at which the light's going to strike the object. Now, you'll notice in this lesson that we didn't go in and start drawing a hand in exactitude. Like we could have gone in and drawn the fingers and the fingernails and things of that sort. We went deeper. We went for the skeletal structure, because the one thing that I've learned that's super important when you draw the hand is that the hand is largely determined by the skeletal structure. Some parts of the body are less determined by the skeletal structure. Like if you're drawing an area that has the stomach, you're not really going to see the skeletal structure. There's a lot of other things going on at that point. But when you're drawing the hand, you really got to be able to think of the bones beneath everything. So if light's coming from this angle, I'm going to assume it's all coming from the same angle. And this is a cube right here, just like that, almost as if we pick it up. Then we know that the far side of this finger is going to be in shadow. And maybe I'll erase away and clean up a little bit so you guys can see my marks a little bit better. All right, so the light's coming from here. Again, imagining this cube is right here. That means the far side of the ring finger is going to have this little shadow on it. Light's coming from here. The pinky's going to be receiving a lot of light over here, but then the side of the pinky is going to, just like this, have this side wall that's in shadow. Now this knuckle of the pinky right here, I'm sorry, this digit, we said that this was digit number 2 right here. So this is digit 1, this is digit 2. Now, if light is coming from this angle and a box is advancing towards us at that angle right there, whoops, that's a really poorly done cube, sorry about that. If light's coming from this angle, the whole entire thing pretty much is going to be in shadow. And light is just going to hit that top plane right there. So that's the case going on right here. So we can send this whole entire area of the pinky into just a uniform shadow pretty much right here. So what else is going to be in shadow if light's coming from this direction? Well, this person is holding like a basket, and there's a whole lot of shadow down here So we can let that kind of disappear. We can kind of let the far side of this finger disappear. And I encourage you guys to always keep on you like an eraser that, this is a precise eraser where I can go in and I can start cleaning up. And as I clean out the areas that are in the light, the drawing starts gaining more of like a three-dimensional believability. And I'll just keep on cleaning up the light areas, just like that. And it's pretty cool. The drawing, when I work on paintings, again, I do a lot of portrait commissions for a lot of clients. This is literally how I address, sometimes I have someone holding something, like let's say like a violin in a painting. I just had the judge's portrait where she was holding the gavel. I had a portrait of my friend, and my friend is holding it's a crab trap that they use in the South Bay of Long Island. Whatever I'm doing, whatever I'm working on, I'm always thinking in these geometric essence terms, even if I'm working in quote unquote realism. And so basically right there, I'm pretty happy with how this mapped out. It actually feels to me like this will, if I wanted to take this drawing further, this will land pretty nicely. I feel like the lines that are here, I'd have a pretty easy job of making this into a really believable hand. Now, as we jump over to the next stage in upcoming lessons, I just want to hint at the wrist and what the wrist might look like down here. The wrist, as we had over here, we had a cube advancing. That's pretty much what we're going to stay with for the time being. We're just going to keep that as being almost like a long rectangular cube box just going away from us. If you want, you can even hint at a little bit of shade that this would be in as it goes away from us. So the lesson that we just worked on is actually, it's a pretty advanced concept in the sense of it's something that I myself it was an area that I was pretty deficient in terms of thinking and constructing and building let's say a hand, a face, an entire figure, whatever it might be. And I had an artist come along to me, and his name was Ben Fenske. Ben Fenske had studied with some pretty amazing Russian artists. And so the Russian artists were really, they were just way more advanced than I was as concerns, like let's say, constructive anatomy and things of that sort. And so Ben Fenske taught me this approach, and I incorporated it into my work, and I've just been really enthusiastic about it ever since.